What's up, everybody? Back at you. This is BLACKFIRE-RISING, aka Fire. Got my guy here, Kanan Powers. What's up, bro?
What's up? What's up? Back at it.
Back at it, man. Uh, well, we had several topics we was just gonna go over today. Man, I'll let you go ahead and kick it off, man. What you got for us?
All right, cool. Well, we're gonna go over a couple topics. I think we'll just kind of let it flow. But my bad. We'll let it flow. But we'll start out with the police shooting, the most recent one that I've heard about. I don't know. It could be one more recent now. But Jalen Walker was a 25-year-old male who was supposedly shot at least 60 times by police officers in Akron, Ohio. Um, so I just wanted to go over some of the details that I read in the article at CNN, so you could take that with a grain of salt. But from what I hear is that this was a routine traffic stop. Is how it started. Uh, Allegedly, Jalen Walker led police on a high-speed chase. So I'm guessing they didn't really mention what the traffic stop was about, but apparently it led to a high-speed chase. During that high-speed chase, allegedly Jalen Walker fired a shot that was caught on a highway camera, where they say it looked like a flash from a muzzle of a gun, and a sound is consistent with a gunshot came from the vehicle. However, that led to a high speed chase. At the time where Jalen Walker was shot, he was unarmed. But they said they later found a gun in the car, and they also found that shell on the highway somehow. So that was consistent with the gun that they found in the car. So that was the reason why they say they used excessive force, basically lethal force. And of course, they say it was justified. Um, After reviewing the body camera footages, they said that was consistent with the police's use of force. It was consistent with the union and the policies of the police department. So um, that's kind of just the narrative and the overview of what happened. So, with that being said, is it anything you wanted to mention right off the bat?
Well, yeah, man. I don't know how much you were going to talk about that, but I mean, it just seems like the obvious, just glaringly obvious, is that even if they thought that he had fired a shot previously, by the time they engaged him and opened fire, he obviously was not returning fire. So
Right.
the point is, like, I've seen many of people where the police draw down on the person and it's hands up or we're going to shoot, and then they close in, and then they apprehend the person. They don't typically act off a previous suspected gunshot, and
Right.
then and continue to shoot, continue to open fire when the person is obviously not returning fire. Now, I'm not sure if he was inside the car when they were shooting to where like they couldn't see, or if they had a clear aim at his silhouette as his at his person, which I would imagine if you can get struck by 60 rounds, he likely was not inside the barrier of a vehicle. But yeah, that just
Correct.
stands out to me, man.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Actually, I didn't mention that part, but yes, it was a foot chase by the time that they shot him. So he was out of the vehicle. So some of the controversial points was the gunshot on the highway, or the alleged gunshot, because again, you can see it flash, but it could have been a reflection of light. It could have been a various number of things. So it wasn't really proven that it was even actually a gunshot. But however, it's the gunshot, it's the him getting out of the vehicle, getting back into the vehicle, and then exiting from the passenger side of the vehicle, which led to a foot chase. So these are all the areas where the cops said they don't know if he had the gun or not. They heard a gunshot, or a gunshot was reported. However, I don't know if they reported that before or after they shot him. Like after they looked at the footage, after they got the highway camera footage. I don't know. But those are the points that the news article emphasized on. Here's my thing, which is something that a lot of people I don't think realize, is that according to the 14th Amendment, I believe that you still are supposed to have due process. So yes, is it illegal to shoot a firearm in public or to even shoot at a police officer? Yeah, it's illegal to do so. However, in America, you're supposed to make it to a courtroom where they can decide. Okay, you're supposed to have this due process. So the whole thing about it is that what keeps happening, they go through these details, but they're missing out the key factor that according to the Constitution, he's still supposed to be arrested and then he would have to answer for those crimes later. But if shooting at a police officer is automatic death penalty, that's the gray area in the loophole to me, where it's like, are we are we arresting people and then taking them to court and giving them due process, or are we deciding on the streets that we're going to take a life because we feel that it might be a threat? That's the thing that still hasn't been addressed. Even after the George Floyd verdict, where a lot of people were saying, like, we've got justice. I think another question we need to start asking or being more clear about is what is justice at this point, because we know that just arresting a police officer or sending somebody to jail isn't exactly justice if this can happen just 2 years later. So that's kind of my take on it, is that regardless to what happened during the chase, at the end of the day, he should have saw a courtroom. That's what we really get into, especially after the fact when we find out that he was unarmed at the time of the shooting. That means that there was not an imminent threat. It was just allegations at that point, even if he had fired a weapon from his vehicle.
Exactly. And what goes without saying as well is that if in fact there was a shot or what was even perceived to be a shot, let's say there was a shot from the vehicle. I mean, unless there was a round that impacted one of the squad cars or, they had proof positive that he was actually firing at them. I mean, on the 4th or during different days of the year at any given time, people are known to, there are firearms discharged in general in city limits. Police do not then use that as a premise to find and engage the suspected, shooters and then execute them summarily,
Exactly.
like just based off of, we think you fired a weapon in the past.
Right.
Once you ensue with a foot chase and you have a visual of the person, and I imagine they, well, maybe not ordered him to stop, maybe not. I mean, I'm not sure if the first rounds impacted him from behind. Clearly do they did not do any due diligence to determine whether or not he was in fact armed or posed a threat to their life at the time when they were shooting, because he didn't have a gun on him. So, and I think, like you said, there's the glaringly obvious miscarriages of justice there, like the violation of the rights and, right to life, right to liberty. And then, but I think, man, the pink elephant is that George Floyd, you can go before George Floyd or after. It's all just like in the same space of us being violated and not having due process and not being full citizens, which is part and parcel of, the Constitution not pertaining to us and us still being in a 3/5 status in our, the 13th Amendment. Man, I don't know, bro. This is like, it's the
Yeah.
obvious, like we're not citizens. So
Right. Yeah. No. Like I said, it's over and over, and it was a lot of. I would go through some of the comments that was made and just go back to the reactions of the people when the verdict came for Chauvin. But it were a few civil rights leaders that did make statements saying like, okay, this is we're going in the right direction, but this in no way is enough. And we went through the whole defund the police thing, and everybody kind of backed out from that because it was like the streets were too violent. We need the police back. So all of these things, I think people should pay more attention to. Like, if you don't keep pushing forward, it's easy to fall back. And I mean, like I said, it's less than 2 years from that incident where America was supposed to have this awakening and everybody was changing. And it's like, since then, even during that trial, people was getting shot by the police. And now you have this crazy number where the medical examiner said we counted 60, but it's most likely more. They said they're still trying to
Right.
decipher which holes were entry wounds versus exit wounds. So I mean, they basically saying it's a guaranteed 60, but it's not a minimum. Or basically it's a minimum 60, not a maximum. It's not
And you
so.
know what that indicates, bro, is like when you, I'm sorry, when you,
mm,
oh, was you
Go
done?
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
When you talk about the accuracy of shootings, when they measure the accuracy of police shootings in a moment of adrenaline, you don't even get that will be something like a 80% ratio. Because if the police claim they fired 90 shots or so, and he was struck 60 times or so, that's something like a, 70, 80% ratio, which is not consistent. Usually the percentage is far lower. So even with the best shots or people that are trained on ranges consistently, they're not going to strike a target in a moment of adrenaline and a chase and spins around. You're not going to get that, you know, off the top of my head. And don't quote me, but it's something like maybe 50, 60% or lower,
Hmm.
which would lead me to suspect that either there were way more than 90 shots fired or he was shot after he was laying down.
Right.
And by the way, folks, I know you heard in the background those gunshots. Yes, that was 60. That's what 60 gunshots sound like.
Yep. That's yeah, it's crazy. The more you think about it, it's just like that story, that storyline is getting old. That you can't compare to just regular crime because again, we're not talking about crime that's coming from quote unquote criminals. We're talking about crime coming from people who are supposed to be law enforcers. So we would have to fight that differently. All
Right.
right. So we can't just look at that like getting mugged on your way to work or something by some. This is somebody who has the authority basically to violate you. So we have to address that differently.
Yeah, it's like if you're in a classroom and your fellow student steals your book, tears it up, and hits you with the spitball, that's one thing because you look to the teacher to correct that situation. But when it's the teacher that does it or the one that actually has the authority and they tear up your book and hit you with a spitball, that you got a whole different problem. But yeah,
Facts.
man.
All right. Well, so you want to move on? Let's we can tackle
Yeah,
this
what
Roe
we
versus
got?
Wade.
Roe v. Wade. We know y'all heard, and it's what everybody's talking about.
It is what everybody's talking about. So that's 5-4. If you're not familiar with the um, the Supreme Court and how that works, so we have 9 judges and they vote, and basically, depending on the outcome of that vote, obviously will determine if something is accepted or rejected. So they overturned Roe versus Wade. Clarence Thompson, Samuel Jr., and Neil, sorry if I don't say his name right, Gorsuch, uh, and Amy Corbett, they all voted, I believe, to overturn Roe versus Wade. So that's one female officer. The rest were males. It's only, I believe, it's only 3 females on the panel. But I wanted to throw it out there just to give people an idea of who voted and how they voted. So what you, I'm gonna let you take that one if you want to take it from there and talk a little bit about the overturning of Roe versus Wade. Why do you think that is?
Okay. Oh yeah, for sure, man. No, no problem. My bad. I was on mute.
No, it's
So
all good.
yeah, overturning of Roe v. Wade. Now just the time lapse going from before ahead, and we've mentioned in previous videos. We'll try to put the link up here, where we talked about the eugenics movement and where um, not only abortion, but birth control and all those sort of birth control measures came from, because abortion was ultimately the epitome of a birth control measure, being downstream of pills, condoms, abstinence, pull out methods, or whatever. And in the eugenics movement, it was an explicit need to curb the Black population. And we talked about that. Fast forward it, the epitome of it was actual abortion, to where, well, if all else fails, we'll just kill the baby. And I think as the abortion issues have evolved, quote unquote, the push for full-term abortions to up to 9 months and even birth. Uh, Many political mainstreamers will say that was just that was just too much. That was one of the political that was one of the things that actually triggered the backlash and the conservative movement. However, we suspect that while that may be the case, it doesn't have to be the exclusive case. We also talked about the falling white population and how abortion was initially intended for Black people explicitly and people of color. Um, and then now, when that you have white populations that are on a steep decline, and with the white replacement theory, uh, I forget the actual acronym they use, but a replacement theory. Um, is it a coincidence that now they're stepping that back and they're saying we're going to outlaw abortion? And it could be because, like, when you set off a grenade in a room, when it starts to wound too many of the people that you did not intend for it to wound or take out, you have to fine tune that. So you want to back it off. And it seems like whites, out of everyone who people defined as white, have been hurt more by abortions and other sort of other politics and measures that tend to curb populations. So that would just be my opening pitch on that, man. I don't know if you had an article or anything you had.
I didn't really have an article that I wanted to go over. Again, I read up on it on today.com. And it just talked about, like I said, the judges that, which judges voted which way. So if that's something that you're interested in, if any of the listeners are interested in what article I read, they can go to the today.com, man. Um, and just type in who voted to overturn Roe versus Wade, and the article should pop up. But it was nothing too significant in there. I just wanted to actually get people aware of not making this about men everywhere. Like I didn't vote to overturn it or to put it into play. So I think people just really need to focus on, when you have, whether you're in favor of it or you're against it, just make sure you're throwing darts at the right targets. So understand Supreme Court, understand the rulings, like understand the politics. Don't let this be a tool used to divide the people. And I mean all people at this point. Like, we have no problems with each other, but these people who make decisions for our lives get us riled up. We can't touch them. And a lot of this time it turns into argument and backlashes amongst the people. And I think Americans in general really need to they all need to wake up. Like I said, like, this is something that's been going on for generations. We see what's happening. Like you said, the more detailed version of it, of why they overturned it, I think I agree. I agree with what you're saying, basically, because that makes the most sense. So even when they bring these laws and put them into action, a lot of times, if you don't know the underhanded agenda, you can just be blindsided and used as a puppet to promote their agenda and not know it. So we just need to look at everything deeper. Um, that's really all that I have to say for that.
Facts, man. And I challenge everybody. I challenge everybody that's listening. Like Kanan is saying, you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to think, why now? After all these years since Roe v. Wade was won, why now? And what is it about this day and time that would coincide with such a radical change? And typically, when you're dealing with systems of power that play long games, it's not much coincidence to be said. I mean, you at least have to do your diligence to find out